Welcome to the Sacred Reclamation Podcast. Here we will be exploring how we can reclaim the sacredness of birth, life, death, and all the happenings in between. My name is Sydney Sands, and my intention with this podcast is to reclaim the art of storytelling. This is a space where we will practice allowing the simple act of telling our stories and listening to the stories of others to be medicine for our bodies and spirits. I invite you to keep an open mind and an open heart as you listen to these stories. Grab a cup of tea, maybe a little snack, and settle in for story time. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sacred Reclamation Podcast. I'm your host, Sydney Sands, and today on the show we have my dear friend, Alexis Holland. Thanks for being here today. So happy to have you.
Happy to be here.
Alexis and I know each other from St. Pete. We met kind of when I stepped into the yoga world. She worked at the yoga studio where I did my yoga teacher training, and I worked the front desk there for a little while. And yeah, that was back in 2020, and we just had a connection over just sharing, similar interests and similar experiences. And yeah, you're such a special soul. And even just when we were talking in those few moments before, and you're talking about your chef, I almost forgot that you're a chef, and I'm just thinking you just do so many things and you do everything so beautifully. You're so creative. You have this deep well of creativity, and it's very inspiring. And I love knowing you, and I'm so grateful that our paths crossed in St. Pete, because neither of us are in St. Pete anymore. So it's definitely a time to cherish.
Yeah. We're weaving this really beautiful web of connection, right? And it's always special to see which of those connections last throughout the years.
So. Yeah, and the ones that kind of, even when it fizzles out, when it just comes back around, I try to really pay attention to that, because that's God guiding us to
totally
people that are meant to be in our lives and serve some kind of role on our journey. So, All right, I'd love to start with a short meditation, just dropping into our heart space.
Love this.
So for anyone listening, and for you, Alexis, if you just want to get cozy, get comfortable, start to settle in, start to notice your breath. Maybe you naturally deepen your breath or sigh it out. And if you're comfortable with closing your eyes, go ahead and close them down, and we're gonna fall straight into our heart space. Take a few deep breaths in to arrive in this space. Such a foundational space in our physical body, and also our energetic, emotional, spiritual bodies. There's a lot going on in this space. Maybe play around with traveling to the front of your heart and breathing in there, noticing the texture, whatever that means for you. Then moving your breath to your middle heart, imagining that you're in the center of your body, right in the middle of your heart. Breathe there and notice the texture. And then allow your breath and your awareness to carry you to the back of your heart, this deep heart space where maybe we've shoved a lot of things back there, a lot of forgotten things, a lot of things we maybe don't want to look at And maybe also some of our most treasured things are living here in the back of our hearts. Just be here for a moment and breathe. And maybe travel to the sides of your heart, really just breathing in and being with this 360 whole experience of your heart. Breathe in. Noticing, allowing what's here to be here. And maybe you invite a little intention of opening your heart space. If that feels good for you, and if it doesn't, that's okay too. We'll stay here for 1 or 2 more breaths. Allow your last breath to be the biggest breath you've taken all day, really filling up your belly with air. Maybe holding it at the top, maybe taking in one more sip. Pause. And then let it all go. And start to come back. Maybe you open up your eyes, move around your neck, look around your space a little bit.
I love that this is actually how I start every meeting at this time in my life. So this is like the third time today where I've got to like drop in with beautiful individuals
That's amazing.
before, like, just creating and being in also conversations around how we can mobilize in a really special way. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It really changes like everything when you start things with that, you know. It helps me really transition into not feeling so like, well, be like jumpy and excited, and I love that, but I also want to like settle myself down so I can be in my body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it
Yeah.
does it puts the brain in a special space of being able to give and receive in a way that's very, it's balanced.
Mm.
Like to balance the brain before, you know, activating it is good. Is good and proven to be great. Like
Yeah.
across the whole board, it's like wow.
Yeah. So I'd love to now move into setting intentions. And I am actually just going to roll with it. And mine is really clear. My intention is to stay in my body for this conversation and really be here in presence with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let the presents bring those presents.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. Living by intention stays mine. I think, doing everything with intentionality is a gift to be a human aware enough to know what that means, and definitely don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
Truly.
All right. So I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself. You want to tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, who you come from, what you do.
I laugh because such a multifaceted question, and I'm what some elders of mine we've talked deeply about this. It's known as a polymath, as are you, and as are many people who start to activate their spirit in such a way. Because humans have never been singular. We're so much an ecosystem, an entire universe. And so we, as we age, get to meet so many versions of ourselves through, um, yeah, so many versions of ourselves that we get to meet with every experience that we have, with every new skill that we learn, be it out of a desire or a hobby or out of a need and out of survival. So I think that this generation is at a really powerful nexus where we're being called to be many again, um, because it's necessary. And of course, within that, um, there is this the singular, which is being, just allowing yourself to be, right? Um, who am I? I am here as a change maker, as an activator, as an innovator, as an inspiration. Um, and I'm here to share the gifts that I've been given, um, really by God, Great Spirit, whatever you call that connection to Source that you have. Um, I believe that we all have that ability to connect to something so much bigger than ourselves, that is our purpose, that comes through uniquely for each person. Um, I've been really blessed with a multitude of skill sets, everything from just kind of how I wrap everything up is centered around generational healing. Um, and that really started when I was born, because the combination of the lineage that I come from, they called me in because they both needed healing. And so I was kind of one of those kids that came in like with a memory of something much older than myself. Um, and that memory looked like questioning everything from the beginning. I remember being 10 years old, 11 years old, and I grew up at that age. I was in a small town in Michigan, and it was a small grocery store, basic. And we were in the deodorant aisle, and my mom grabbed like the secret deodorant, like the stuff where you like twisted it up and it had the gel, coming out. And I looked at my mom and I was like, I don't want cancer to develop in my armpits. I was 10 years old. This was before YouTube. This was like we were still on, cable TV and VHS at that point for me. Um, and so imagine like, my parents just being like, um, are you okay? You know? But like I was that little kid, I was cooking, I was spending a lot of time in trees. I was like outside barefoot. I was, you know, making relationships with living beings around me. And, it was that ancient line of indigeneity that was coming through from that young age. And I was also born into a lot of disease. So a lot of family members suffered from heart disease, diabetes, addictions, alcoholism, just like across the board. And one thing would lead to another, and ultimately organ failure for everyone in my family. So I started to recognize that that wasn't normal. And I think that really um, sparked that curiosity of wondering why everybody's sick. Why is everybody dying? Why is everybody unhappy? Why is everybody depressed? Like, where is the joy? I was asking myself that young, because I wasn't fortunate enough to be born into um, a lot of that. I think that there was, back in the 90s, um, it what like all the stuff that we have access to now, like our parents and grandparents and so on, like their generations didn't have access to this stuff. They wanted to learn something, they needed to go to a library, they needed to think of the question, they had to get a book, or they had to have good influences around them to teach them and guide them. um, and so there just weren't a lot of tools. There wasn't access to therapy, there wasn't access to, you know, all the tools that we have now, because we have the beauty of being influenced by other people who are on this path through our cell phones, this, that, and the other. So so many people suffered from depression and postpartum depression, and just like not handling their traumas at all because they were told to pray about it or sweep it under the rug or forget about it. So I was a generation of a lot of very hard individuals that did not have any coping mechanisms whatsoever. And so growing up in that, for some reason, there was something inside of me that was wondering what was wrong. And that led to my personal research into how to prevent heart disease, diabetes, depression, anxiety, all these things that I saw that were killing my family. Um, So, fresh out of high school, fast forward a little bit. Um, well, I guess it's also important to know that I have a very gospel background. So, I grew up going to church also with my grandmother, which is where a lot of the, like, just the gospel root in me, the holy woman through me is through her. And so that's, you know, that ignited a lot as well, because in the Black church you witnessed spirit moving in ways that is just so powerful. You know, you see people really let go, you see people really express themselves, you see people really believing in something, you see healing happen in real time by people placing hands on somebody and praying, and the next thing you know, homie who couldn't walk could walk again. Like I'm talking about real time miracles that come from Black and Indigenous peoples that we've been doing for a long time. It wears different hats, like depending on how assimilation has taken place in or around your family. But ultimately, this power is human nature. Like we have the power to heal. And so, witnessing spiritual healings, exorcisms, I'm talking like people speaking in tongues, people coming in and like eyes rolled in the back of their head, type of crazy stuff, going through a tough time, and then a grandma coming through and bringing the hallelujah, like bringing the Holy Spirit through, and the next thing you know, you got a grown man on their knees crying, thanking God. And this is the type of stuff that like you're not going to learn in Western yoga. This is not the type of stuff that you get in any sort of, you know, in a lot of these schools that are out now. This is just straight roots. So there's also that. Um, and that is just something that, you know, will call upon you, and you either answer the call one day or avoid it. You know, you're either born into it and you figure out how to work it for you. Like that's kind of been my journey, like being born into that and then recognizing how God works through me specifically. And at that time when I was little, like the pastor and like the people in my life, like my godmother and stuff, like they had this prophecy about me, and they was like, well, she's gonna end up doing some crazy stuff in her life. Like, we don't know, like, God's going to take her on some journey. He's going to take her out, far away, out and beyond. And, but we have to trust that that's, you know, what's going to happen and it's necessary. And it's crazy because that's what happened. I became like the traveling baby. I started traveling all over. I just got my car and I keep driving. Literally, quite literally. So as soon as I graduated high school, instead of going to regular college, I started traveling the country. Um, the day after I graduated high school, I got all my stuff and I started living out of my car, going from uh, national forest to national forest as far as I could go. That's actually how I found Kaya. I was in
Hmm.
Colorado. And at the time, like, I was real activated from a young age. I kind of, um, I'll openly say, like, plant medicine came into my life kind of early. So I was a teenager when I first started plant medicine, and um, so that was really interesting because that's also when I um, was introduced to a group of friends where we like did these camping trips. So like we would go and camp on these islands. Like growing up in Florida, there was so many neat like outdoor explory type of things that you could do if you had the mind to like explore it. My family wasn't into that, but I knew I was like, okay, there's something that's calling me to the wild. And so going out and camping on these spoil islands and taking plant medicine and making music and being creative and being just like embodied as like a woman deeply connected to the earth, like that was a really interesting formative time for my brain.
Mm.
I'll say that. And so that ultimately led me to wanting to see the rest of the country and as far as I could go, um, because I loved mountains. All of a sudden I was like, I'm a werewolf woman. I need to go see all of these trees. I need to see them all. I need to see all of them. I want to see all of them. I want to go be a mermaid in all the waters, in all the waterfalls. I want to go and I want to learn about myself. And I you know, in American culture, this is like the only culture that'll press you to decide what you're doing with the rest of your life after high school. Everywhere else, it's very common for kids, at that age to actually go and backpack around Europe, go and backpack and travel the world and, you know, take that moment of discovery. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to give that to myself. So I did. That's how I ended up at the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. So the first yoga therapy slash polarity therapy, cranial sacral herbalism type of like energy medicine, all that type of school came into my realm when I was 19 years old. Um, and so that's what I decided to do. I was like, I'm going to go and learn all these coaching methods. I know that it's my path to start healing my family. Let me figure out the tools to do that. So that continues to be the theme throughout my whole life journey is how can I heal my lineage? How can I ensure that heart disease, diabetes, depression, none of this shows up anymore? How can I ensure that myself and everyone that comes from me is healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, at their highest potential? What can I do for myself and for my future kids to ensure that their brain fully develops, that their bodies fully develop in a way that's in complete alignment with nature? What do I need to do? And that question, Sid, is what has shaped my entire career, which is literally, what can I do? Well, actually, turns out that we can do a lot. It turns out we can do a lot, which is where this gets so juicy, you know? It's like, wow.
Yeah. And you're such a special woman for so many reasons, but one thing that is really jumping out to me now is just like how amazing it is that you were just born with that knowing. It's almost as if, to me, it sounds like you just were born and you knew what your purpose was. And you, I don't know, maybe you did forget that here and now, but it sounds like you've just always been really connected to your truth, your purpose, your divinity. And that's just so beautiful. That's what I really pray for my children. And yeah, I just want to take a moment to point out how beautiful and amazing and special that is. And I wish that more people experienced that.
Yeah, we're gonna start to see more and more of it, um, and two, when we, if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, and this the hundredth monkey effect, right? Like the planet, ultimately humans are a species, we are of the earth ultimately. Like the duty of a being of a planet is to, especially one with consciousness, is for us to protect the earth. And so what's happening is that we're being born with these innate skill sets and solutions on how to save the planet. Because as corny as it may sound, we're actually there right now. We're at this point where if we don't act and bring solutions forward as a species, all this development that these rich folks talk about, like, well, I'll just go live on Mars. Okay, have fun. Earth was made for me, so I'm going to do what I can to take care of this planet. Unfortunately, we cannot rely on those people to do that for us. So this idea of, you know, selecting a few inadequate individuals to make life altering decisions for all life on Earth is ridiculous. Everybody is born with the innate ability on what to do to protect the planet, the little piece that they are born upon, and wherever their body lands is where you're responsible to take care of. And so it's it's a crazy time because we are faced with these mega companies and these individuals, these billionaires and trillionaires who feed off of the opposite. They feed off of a really dark, chaotic energy, one of destruction, one of siphoning the energy of other people. And they do so in a myriad of ways, from keeping us ingrained in consumption, in a constant state of consumption, and keeping us indoctrinated with their narratives through their movies, through their shows. I mean, at this point, we're at such a space of psychological warfare that, like, we really have to detox, cleanse ourselves, cleanse our minds, so that we can realign with what's needed right now, which is every single one of us who's alive and well to do better and to do things in alignment with the planet as a living entity. So much more than a living being, but a living consciousness. And of course, we know that the planet's going to do exactly what it's designed to do, which, if that means wipe everything out, then that's what it'll do. And honestly, if that day comes, I would be so grateful for the planet and for people, because it's like we've gotten so far away from being human that we've become, as a whole, and as a majority, more people are harming each other and the planet than the opposite. And that's where this
Yeah.
imbalance starts to take place. And it's a problem. So our solution becomes, how can we ensure that all life thrives? And by doing that, we have to proceed with a level of um, intentionality and solutions that involve a healthy planet versus the opposite, which is to take from the planet and pollute the planet, which is what's happening at large right now. Humans have survived for since the beginning of time without such industries, right? Without all the industries that are running everything. So there's a way forward where we can still move forward and evolve while also putting in place right practices in which everything is a regenerative model versus, taking from a finite system and then polluting it so that there's nothing left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, um, coming back to, like, who am I? Like, this is all who I am. Like, this is all a part of the mission that I'm on right now. Just to connect with like-minded individuals who are resourced and ready to start doing things that are in alignment with the planet and actually leading with well-being of all life as the foundation for leadership. And so, yeah, working with intentional investors, working with people, sustainable architects, working with regenerative farmers, bringing back indigenous practices and traditions, bringing back ancestral foodways, bringing back herbal medicines, bringing back real medicine, bringing back real treatment, bringing all of these things forward that are not new. They've just been silenced or they've been attempted to be erased from our lineages, like quite literally burned down. But what took place in this period of colonialism that we've been in is a really unique phenomenon, and that is that of epigenetics. And that is the science of being born, remembering something. And what people don't realize is that when a large trauma takes place on a people when they die, it does not erase their history. In fact, it cements it even deeper into their DNA to the point where when their descendants are born, they are born with all of those skills, all of that passion, and all of that knowledge that was attempted to be burned away. And that is real magic. Period.
I love that. Oh, just yeah, speaking with you is such a is medicine in itself.
Gotta use our voices, babe.
Yeah.
We gotta use our voices. We gotta use our voices. Yeah.
So you've currently landed in California,
Mm-hmm.
and is that are you still moving around or do you feel like you are landing there for a while?
I think I'll be in Cali for at least a few years because it offers so much of what I love. There's like an immense amount of incredible nature and connection here. I I'm very much so between like LA and San Francisco. So, meaning I spend 2 weeks in LA and 2 weeks or more in San Francisco, Oakland area. Oakland, really. Um, I love me some Oakland. It's a real sweet medicine. And it's interesting how I got out here too. I mean, so that was kind of a pivotal journey because it really stemmed from my father's death. Because when my dad died a year ago, 2 days ago, actually, I was in Brazil. So I was like ready to travel the world and live the digital nomad life in other countries. But when my dad died, it really brought my spirit and everything like physically back here. And it led me to realizing that that energy was such a powerful pull. Like, I need to be here right now in order to make some foundational career moves before, you know, doing my thing around the world. And I'm really glad that I did that. And um, my research really brought me out to California for a lot of different reasons. Sadly, because it's one of the places where you can find diversity in mountains. So, in my travels and my experience of traveling all across the country, in every mountain town I've ever fallen in love with, it's been predominantly whitewashed and a very, very small percentage of Black and Brown individuals living in those towns. Um, that was not okay with me. Like not even Denver, Sid. Like I was not even about Denver because I was like, wow, it's like still pocketed piece, like pocketed neighborhoods of blackness, but like as a whole, like it just lacked a lot of diversity. Like I went to the farmers market and I was like, where's all the black folks? And it was just weird. And so here you don't get that. Like you get all the diversity. You get black people outside, Sid. You get black folks outside. We outside. We shining. We bright. We beautiful. And it's amazing. It's like literally everything of my wildest dreams. And so that's why I came here. I was like, okay, my ultimate mission is to get funding into the hands of Black and Indigenous farmers. and people who are building sustainable projects. I originally came up with that concept as I was working with Sean Sherman in Minneapolis. And I was like, man, I was just going through a moment. I was like, I was seeing some things and I was like, man, God keeps pointing me to opening up my own nonprofit, to starting my own mission, to doing this myself. Like, and it just had me thinking. And I was like, okay, well, I was paying attention at where people were, how people were fundraising and what was working and all this kinds of stuff, right? And I realized that storytelling is absolutely the key. And but what I realized in that, I was like, as I was formulating the way for me to earn enough money to eventually buy land and open up my own retreat center and education center and all this kinds of thing, my own sustainable neighborhood that I'm excited to build one day, I realized that I could also do that for others. And so that like took me on this whole big journey of recognition of like, wow, I can help other people fundraise for their big important land projects and for what they're doing to bring sustainable farming and sustainable neighborhoods in these clusters to make essentially little Wakandas all around the world. I'm like, okay, like let's do this. Like let's have these superhuman bubbles that are like just energetically protected from all evil. Okay, great. I can help other people make their dreams come true too. And so I started researching and realizing, like, okay, a non negotiable for me is mountains, trails, and access to waterfalls and all the things. Like, I just need to be outside in a big, big way. Like, I love backpacking. I love going deep into the woods. Like, that's my favorite point of access to myself and God and everything, all that is. And it's been the biggest source of therapy for me. So it was very clear that I had a lot of great friends in California. Oakland was like what was pulling on my heart the most. And because there is a lot of people here who are fundraising for the same thing. There's a lot of Black and Indigenous farmers out here. There's a lot of people, just a lot of activism, a lot of activation, a lot of people doing really big things. And I needed to be in that energy, girl. Like, I needed it. Like, I needed to be in a place where I could network and be amongst like-minded individuals, go to a coffee shop and not be the only one thinking the way that I do. I really, really needed that. And I found that all throughout Cali. So this is the space, honey. We are here. I'm in LA half the time and the Bay half the time. And I love it. And so it's like it gives me so much room to like meet so many people and collaborate and so all of my favorite things. And we haven't even talked about music yet. Like music being a huge one as well. Music and the art of storytelling professionally, aka Hollywood, right? But like our own version because F that. And like we're here to reclaim the narrative. So, there's a lot of ways forward and I'm just excited to be here. So yeah, Cali. Cali, I can't even believe it. Your girl's in Cali. Oh my God.
Yeah, California. I went there for the first time last year. Two of my like childhood best friends live in Ventura, Ojai area.
Cool.
And Shane and I went on like a cross country road trip and we ended up in California visiting them. And California is magnificent. Like it is
It's
such
crazy.
big energy there. The nature there, like we ended up staying there for, was it 8 weeks? It was a long time. Like we didn't want to leave, and I'm sure that had to do partially with like I have really good friends there who are like family to me, and but also like the nature and just like we spent so much time there and we barely saw any of it.
That's how it is. That's
Yeah.
definitely how it is.
And I didn't even know, like, we weren't there long enough to really like explore the people or get to know people. So I don't even know any of this that you're talking about, that this is where all the Black people are outside and thriving and regenerative
Girl,
farmers.
yeah.
And
It's amazing.
yeah, that's so beautiful.
And there's pockets of it. Like there's pockets of these movements throughout the US, like and they're typically surrounded by these bigger cities, which makes sense, right? So you have like Chicago's like a really big area. Atlanta's another really big area. I know DC is like a big area too in some regard with that, and there's definitely pockets throughout the Carolinas for sure. Like, and so there's pockets throughout Florida, right? Like, we know where the pockets are, um, but yeah, access to mountains was really like the thing where I was like, okay, I want to be on the mountains, and I don't want to be the only melanated person on the trail, and so it's where it brought me. Um,
Yeah.
and it sucks. Like, it really even sucks to say it like that, but it's true. Like, in so many other places, it's hard to find unless you're in some of these concentrated pockets. And even still, there's a specific type of adventure mindset that comes out to Cali that's like, you have transplants from everywhere with a similar story of like, we came here for this.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's real.
Yeah, I would love to spend more time there. My biggest issue with being out there was how dry it is. Like, I'm such an
Oh,
Eastern United States
depending.
baby. Yeah,
You'll love the
maybe
bay.
northern.
You'll love that because you got
The
the
furthest we
redwoods.
went,
Like,
so when we left Ojai, the furthest north we went, we were there like in November, so we were avoiding winter. We didn't want to be in too cold conditions, but we wanted to see the redwoods, so we went to basically the southernmost point where you could see the redwoods, Santa Cruz.
beautiful. Yeah,
But
Santa
I
Cruz
would
is pretty wet.
love.
Like,
Yeah, that is true.
from there up, that's when it starts to turn into more like, you know, rainforesty vibes,
Hmm.
foresty vibes.
Yeah, I definitely was surprised and taken aback by some of the landscapes out west, like some places in the Gila National Forest in New Mexico, and being in like a pine forest in Arizona, and just like
Hmm.
I'm not a big fan of the desert. Just I don't like the dry,
Right.
neutral, bland. It just doesn't do it for me. But I was really surprised that like that's not all that's out there.
No, there's so many different types of desert too. Like, I'm in high desert right now, and like in the distance, like I have this really beautiful view in the distance. There's a mountain covered in snow. And like but then like right outside, like I have this really rocky like mountain, and it's like 60, 65 today or whatever. But it's just crazy to like look out and see like desert and then snow. It's so I'm like, what? But yeah, the fires out here are crazy. Like, Southern California is dry and it's scary and it's unhappy. Like,
Yeah.
it's not sustainable for me long term. My partner lives in Oakland, so I'll probably end up there, but we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Because I'm really in a state of I'm in such a deep flow state at this time in my life that I'm just where God needs me to be at any given moment of time. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
real.
That's such a beautiful state to be in. That's kind of where we're in too. Since we left St. Pete, we are on our journey of like searching where we're going to land. And
Mm,
we love Appalachia. So we spent a lot of time up there last
mm-hmm,
year. And the area that we were in, it's hard to find housing and hard to make enough money there.
mm-hmm,
We were like outside of Boone in the Boone area because that's where my younger brother lives. So it's so beautiful, and the community there is really beautiful. We were really like welcomed in by the land and the people,
mm-hmm,
but it just wasn't meant to stick. So it was a really precious time. And then we also just have been like, moving with the river, moving with the wind, and not getting too attached to anything. Although we really do have our heart's intention and desire is to find somewhere to settle down this year.
mm-hmm,
um, but just allowing ourselves to surrender and trust and have faith and be in that flow of like God is taking us exactly where we're meant to be, and we have ended up in the most beautiful places with beautiful opportunities, and everything is really really worked out. So I love the journey.
mm-hmm. And that's it right there. Because like we can have all the plans that we want,
Yeah.
and then God's gonna be like, "Well, nice try."
Yeah.
Like, I had this in mind for you, you know, and it'd be perfect. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's so much easier when we can stay rooted in that, in our trust
Mm-hmm.
and our faith, because I had a hard time last year when it became apparent that we weren't going to be staying where we were, and I didn't want to let go of it because I was experiencing moments last year where I was like, this is exactly what I prayed for. Like, and my mind and my heart was blown by like literally looking out and seeing my prayers come to life, and just that was so important to me because I needed to know that that was possible,
Mm-hmm.
and to really like experience and embody that being possible. And so then turn around not too much longer later and like be asked to just give it up and let it go. Like
Mm.
that was such a, and still is like such a potent message and lesson for
Oh,
me.
sure, especially of unattachment. And I think it's really, really important for us to also remember that, like, as renters, it's only in part kind of like an illusion of our freedom, an illusion of our full dreams. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear that in the back, but it's also it's a stepping stone. It is God being like, yes, this is for you and for your healing right now, but ultimately I need you to be the complete steward of the land that I truly bring you on. And so until we're actually owning Sid, and like, I'm not even, I'm just saying, like, out of a true reality of what's absolutely needed of us, like, we need to be resourced enough to buy these properties so that we can truly come home. Because until we have full ownership, these are not our homes. These are places that we get to pass through. And I think that that's really, really important to instill, especially within our community, because not even to be like the person that's like, oh, well, you shouldn't rent or whatever. No, rent for as long as you have to, but actively work towards buying, because we need to be making those levels of investments. Like, we have to, in order to get out of this cycle truly of like being under someone's like realm. Like, we need to like completely break free from that. So I think ownership in every sense, which is really stewardship, like truly stewardship. But like, I ain't trying to have nobody mess with me or my land or my people or my food anymore. Like, you know what I mean? So I think ultimately it's good that you were reminded that, like, yes, you were comfortable, but this is not where I'm leading you completely. You
Yeah.
have more steps to go.
Yeah. And we're learning, we've been learning a lot, like because we're so over renting, like we really want to own land and be able to, like, because we love pouring our love into places, and after a while when you're pouring into someone else's, it just, there's this feeling of like shallow roots almost, like
Mm-hmm.
you can't really dig your roots in deep. And it feels good. We love, like, one of our values is leaving places better than we found them, and we love doing that, but we're just getting to the point where like you're almost getting burnt out on that, like getting jaded by it because you're pouring so much of your heart and your soul and your love into it, and then yeah, it's not yours, it's someone else's.
Yeah, especially because you're a plant mama, and like you're
Yeah.
definitely meant to like plant in the ground. And I'm sure you're getting tired of all these pots. Like, it's time for you to like plant your trees.
It's a struggle. I literally just counted the other day because I was talking to my niece about this. My niece is, did she just turn 12? Yeah, she's 12, and she's starting a garden. That was like everything she wanted for Christmas was like raised beds and soil and seeds, and so it's so cute.
Cute.
Yeah, you would love her. You two will have to meet someday because she has that childlike essence that you were describing of how you were as a child. Like, she just
Yeah.
knows. She's such an old soul. She's such a wise woman.
Oh my god. Yeah, she's
And
like, let's start a garden. What are we doing?
yeah. And but I was telling her, I was like, when I leave where I am now, I'm like, I think I need you to watch my plants, because even just having 11 plants is too much. Like I'm stressing them out by moving them all over the place. They're up in the snow and then they're down in the Florida hot sun, and I'm like, I just need a yeah. It's hard for me though to let go of growing because I'm always growing something in any way that I can. I'll definitely be growing something, but it's like my heart just wants to pull me into like plant the whole garden, like let's get it going. And yeah, you're
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it definitely depends. And like, there's so much about a garden that's so seasonal anyway. So it's like we can do so much with a cycle of a year.
yeah.
And I think that that's always good to remember too. But we're actively working towards, you know, owning. And that's, I think, the biggest goal is just to like ensure that like, for me, it's just, I'm just trying to buy as much land as I possibly can. I want like thousands and thousands of acres of land. I'm trying to have me a whole, state, really, a whole little country. But yeah, I'm trying to have a whole bunch of land and a whole bunch of animals running free. I went to this really beautiful farm in Colombia called La Laguna, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. This woman, she inherited the land from her dad, and like there were no barns because the climate was perfect. So like all the animals, she had every animal that you could think of, and they had some that you probably couldn't, and they all roamed free. And like there was mountains and waterfalls. She had a whole waterfall, like private waterfall to herself on this land. Like it was actually insane. And I was like, this is it. I was like, this is it. I was like, this is it right here. You got the fresh water. All your animals are happy. You got space for people to come and have beautiful experiences. You got space for your family. You know what I mean? Like, I love that image. I'm like, yes. Mm-hmm.
What part of Colombia is that in?
If you fly into Manizales, it's a small town above the clouds, like super cute. Manizales, and then from there you'll find your way. Like, definitely should be learn enough Spanish if you don't have it down yet. Like, just to at least get the basics, and definitely go with somebody. But it's really sweet, and you get like a little car ride. They pick you up somewhere like an hour away, and then you drive through a little jungle forest up the little mountain, and then you get there, and it's just like wow, the horses and the donkeys, they're all just like out there. So you'll be on the trail and they'll just come up to you and then just be like, hey. There was one I had a relationship with this donkey, and it was so sweet. I'd be like talking to it and it come up to me and it kind of looked like Kaya. It was like had blue
Oh.
eyes and it was like the same coloring as Kaya. So I was just like, oh good. And then it come up to me and it just would give me nuzzles, and then I'd like be walking on the trail and I'd sing a little song and I'd like whistle to it and it'd look up. Like this is the whole thing.
That's so cute. My one of my best friends is from Colombia and she goes there like once a year or so, so I'll have to tell her about it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, you guys gotta go.
Okay,
Yay,
so I
Colombia.
love that I love how expansive you are. Like I love that you were kind of on this road of trying to find these people or this nonprofit or someone who is like doing this work in the world of like a way to help people get land and just anything that you were interested in. And then I love that you just quickly kind of pivoted and saw that, okay, this doesn't exist in the way that it exists in my mind. So I'm going to create that. I
Mm,
just find that to be really cool. Like, I don't have words for it, but that's so inspiring and also just feels like a important direction that humanity could go in is really like getting out of this individual like how can I win and that's all I care about and like turning that into let me build this whole nonprofit and not only am I going to figure out a way to buy land and build this whole your own country
exactly.
of beautiful melanated people giving back to the earth, tending the earth. receiving from the earth, and then you're like, and then also, how can I help other people do that?
Hmm.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about that? I love that.
Yeah, so it's crazy because it's actually coming into fruition, which is kind of insane. Like it's just goes to show like don't ever underestimate yourself or your visions that you've been given for what you're supposed to create, because you just stay consistent with those, stay consistent in believing yourself, and then one day you realize that that movie scene that was like playing in your mind becomes your reality. So I literally almost a little over a year ago, um, I knew that so after Kaya died, so that was a huge initiation. So after Kaya died,
And Kaya
um,
is, do you just want to say who Kaya is, just for people who don't know?
yeah, Kaya was my half husky, half coyote. She was this majestic ancestor in a wolf body that followed me around everywhere since I was 18. And her and I had the most majestic relationship still I've ever had with any like with any being. Um, Imagine just like the most perfect creature, like you just waking up to them every day. Like she had these icy blue eyes, and she had this like bright orange and white coat, and like just this perfect face. And she sang, which is she would sing with me. She would do everything with me. Like it was just such a beautiful relationship. I cooked for her, so she had what I ate, so we ate together. It was like a whole thing. We backpacked together. It was because of her that I had so much courage in being able to backpack and like going deep, deep, deep into the woods where like most women would never go. Most people don't get to go. But I had courage because she was very much so my compass. She knew trails well. Um, she knew so much, and she taught me so much. And she also was very alert, and so would let me know if anything was going on around us. So I really was able to travel a lot in terms of backpacking and exploring because of her. Um, but fast forward, and she gets cancer right before I move out to Minneapolis to work with Sean Sherman um, on this ancestral foodway, native food, indigenous food mission, and at his restaurant Awamni, and through his catering company. She had her first surgery, which was to remove this tumor. Um, the surgery went well. Uh, But then I had gone to Brazil, and while I was away at a retreat, she ended up with the person that was watching her. She ate some wires. Like she had never done anything like that before. She was must have been experiencing like a lot of high anxiety because she ate like headphones and just like equipment. And I remember my friend was like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, let's just see. She should be able to pass it through. She used to eat all kinds of stuff and she'd just poop it out. Um, but she didn't that time. So when I got back, I brought her to the vet, and they had put her in emergency surgery, and they reconstructed her entire colon. Um, and then whatever they did in there also woke up the old cancer. So then, like, her last months of life were so painful, and she went through so much. She had all these tumors popping up, and they were bloody and bursting out of her skin, and it was very sad. And so I essentially dropped into deep hospice care for my best friend, who just so happened to be covered in fur. And yeah, I I held her till the moment that she died. And it was the most powerful thing I've ever witnessed. Her spirit left her body just like a human spirit leaves the body. So, like, my first initiation into death doulaship, essentially, is what I'll call it, was with my grandmother. When she died, I was with her. And she is my best friend. And Then after that, Kaya was next. So when she died, um, that was such a powerful transference of energy. Um, she died in my arms at home because the vets were closed that day. And an emergency euthanization would have been thousands of dollars. And so, um, man, I've never seen such strength in my life. Like the way that she held on till her last breath was so stunning. Um, Within that moment, in the hour before she died, we had a telepathic moment. And in that moment, it was one of the deepest releases of grief I've ever experienced in my life. But it was her telepathically like speaking to me like, it's okay. Like my body is done now and I've done my job. I've walked you into womanhood. I have walked you into womanhood and you don't need me anymore. You don't need me anymore. And now that it's my time to go, now it's your time to go. So I need you to travel around the world. And I need you to do everything you didn't do because you were my mom first. And in that release, I promised myself that I would do exactly that. And so she died. I wrapped her body in sage and cedar and tobacco with my prayer blankets and prayer belts that I had done ceremonies with, have done vision quests on. And I wrapped her body in them with flowers. And I laid by her body with the window open in my apartment that whole night, played the crystal bowls around her, and let her spirit fly. And then I took her to the infirmary where they just did one pet at a time, and I kept her wrapped in that prayer bundle. And I told them, I was like, do not unwrap her, do not look at her. This is how she'll go. And so that really initiated the next move, because at the time I was working in the restaurant industry, um, chefing it up, learning all kinds of things and teaching all kinds of things, and thinking that that was a way that I needed to move forward. But there was a glass ceiling there. There was a this energy of like the growth wasn't happening fast enough. Yeah, there was a glass ceiling and a lot of ego present where I was. And so and there was a lot of deep heartbreak there as well. Just not enough growth opportunities for, especially for indigenous, Black and indigenous peoples within the company, that's for the record. And also, too, I've always been an entrepreneur, I've always had a business mindset. And I've always had a millionaire mindset because I come from poverty. So for me, continuing to live in poverty is not an option, especially with the goals that I have and the visions that I have, right? So, you know, just my center alone of like buying land, building out homes, building out retreat centers, we're talking millions of dollars. There's no way I can get there at $18 an hour, $25 an hour even. Like there's no way I can get there at that rate. And so there's certain times where you start to work with people and you start to see that glass ceiling. It's up to you to shift it, right? Like you can stay there, you can stay comfortable at that living wage, or if you're trying to move and shake things, honey, that takes money. So I had to go. I was like, okay, Kaya's dead. Like opportunities here have presented themselves and I've done exactly what I needed to do. um, and I've made connections with good people and I've learned a lot. Okay, my time here is done. Now it's time for the next layer. What's necessary of this chapter? I need to be moving. I need to work remotely. And so at that time, I decided, because I'd been doing it for my own business for so long, I was like, I'll do web design and project management for other entrepreneurs and change makers who are in alignment with what I'm doing. That just so happened to pop off. I've barely done any marketing around it, and I've been taken care of ever since, because people need that support, and I'm good at that side of what I do. But I did one Facebook post during that season, and I basically introduced this new layer of businesswoman that I was sharing with the world. And I get a call from an old friend of mine that I'd done retreats with before. Her husband had experienced my work as a sound healer, and it was really profound memory for him. So people similarly to you that I've just built rapport with by being who I am over the years, and they're like, "Listen, we have some projects that I think that you would really appreciate." Fast forward, I work with them now. They're my main team, them and they're, a few other businessmen who have had their awakening, so to speak. So now, what's happening is I'm a bridge between well-being and corporate environments, where I'm bringing my knowledge of ancestral healing, generational healing, combined with my skill set of project management and graphic design, and working with a team of people that are actively bringing resources, capital financing, business plans, vision to matter processing to individuals, enterprises, and companies. So we're actively like bringing resources to the table. So the vision I have been having of helping others get funding for their projects, like we're kicking these projects off right now. One of the projects on the table is literally helping a dear friend of mine gather the funds that she needs to distribute between a handful of Black farmers throughout the nation to get their projects off the ground. So, all that to say is, I never thought in a million years that I would be here. And that's also false, because I've also had these visions of myself since I was like 19. I'm 31 now. And so it's been 12 years of envisioning a way forward that I knew I wasn't going to get there in like a conventional way. I knew I wasn't the type of spirit that's meant to go and get a million degrees and go through a colonial, construct of education. I knew that I was meant to just be me and bring myself forward and be a God centered, good, quality woman, like that has a lot to share and a lot to give. And now we're at a certain point where people in corporate, people who are individuals that we never think, are going through these things and asking these questions, they're starting to honor women like us, because we come with a certain knowledge that they've never had access to before, and they're at a breaking point. And so this is where we come in right now with everything that we've ever wanted to share, and we have to value it ourselves so that others value it too. So I think that that's the biggest part of the work, especially as Black and melanated women give you like the biggest part of our work is to literally remember our worth and our value, and then assert that in these spaces with love and with transparency of dreams forward. We all deserve to have the resources we need to build homes for our families. So the only way we get there is by sharing that value with others and being open to receiving the value in exchange, right? Because a lot of times self sabotage will allow you to just block the blessings because you don't believe it enough. You don't believe that you're worthy enough of love. You don't believe that you're worthy enough of abundance. You don't believe it truly. Because if you did, you wouldn't stop till you got it. And I'm just one of those that I haven't stopped till I got it, and I'm here and I'm getting it and I'm ready to share it. I'm ready to share it. Oh, I want to share it all with everybody. I want everybody to have the blueprint on how to get what they need to get so that we can all thrive. Because yeah, this long stint of struggling is now over.
Wow. Thank you for not only being a dreamer, but thank you for being a doer.
Mm, yeah, lots of obstacles in those tracks.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
just gotta jump over them, jump around them, and anybody who has ill intent that comes into your path, you have to move them away. You have to like literally dissolve them. Press the dissolve button. Like they don't matter. They don't matter. Don't let them pull your energy. Don't let them stop you. Don't let their and you know a lot of times like these energies will come in real sneaky like, you know. I know for me they've come in the forms of family members. They've come in the forms of friends or loved ones, and these people will and these energies will try so hard to stop you from the path that we're on because it's known that it is a light path and it is an illuminating path, and that through our process of sharing our gifts it awakens that in others too. So there is energies that we have to combat that will stop us from that. um, you know, whatever your belief system is. I've seen it loud and clear. You know, when there's light, there is dark. And so it's just up to us to continue to, you know, dissolve literally whatever those obstacles come up as. If it's depression, if it's, you know, somebody treating you poorly, whatever it may be, you have to identify it for what it is. It's just an obstacle. Move around it. Like, that's all. Just take a different path. Whoop. Like, oh, can't touch this. You know? Ah, yeah. Yeah.
So, do you have any wisdom? Like, what would be a nugget of wisdom for women who are struggling with knowing their inherent worthiness? Like, even I can use myself as an example, someone who is actively working on that. And I know that I am inherently worthy and I know I have a lot of value. And still, sometimes I, falter in that knowing. So, what wisdom do you have for those of us who falter in that knowing, or even someone who doesn't believe that to be true?
Mhm. I'll say you are who and what you surround yourself with. So if you're surrounding yourself with people or with programming that confirms your negative self talk, then you'll stay in that loop forever. You'll always be a victim and you'll never get anything done because you don't have the support that you need. So if you are, you know, in a toxic relationship, whether that be a romantic one or with a family member or with a working partnership or it's your employer, whatever it may be, if there's anybody who's against you in your life, you need to get them out. Like you need to move on from them. You need to release codependency, release attachment. You have to let them go. And don't stop until you're around community that sees even more value in you than you see in yourself. Like you like deserve that, but sometimes it's very hard to get there alone. So you have to be around people that believe in you. Period. You have to be around mentors. You have to be around people that you can look up to. You have to be in relationship with a man or a woman that sees you for all that you are. If you're dating, they better love you deeply and they better support every dream that you have. And if at any moment they try to make you feel stupid or inadequate or anything like that, less than who you are, they can become an ex real quick. Do not attach yourself to pleasure. Do not attach yourself to, you know, any of the material things. Like integrity first. You know what I'm saying? Like have integrity for yourself enough to surround yourself with good energy. And that is honestly across the board, Sid, the main problem I see. People have a really hard time removing their attachment from toxic people, toxic ingredients, toxic things in their life, toxic habits. Like, and that's the biggest thing. Like, if we want to think positively about ourselves, it starts with us, but it also continues with affirming that with your community and making sure that the people who are around you also think positively of you.
Yeah.
So I think that's hard for people to listen to sometimes because, you know, abuse is interesting. Uh, and it shows up in oftentimes a gaslit form. So you have people in your life that, sometimes control you to a degree that make you feel unworthy, but they hide that in the things that make you stay. And so it can be really difficult to identify when it's not just your internal energy but an external energy as well. And there's that, but then also grief and trauma, and addressing grief and trauma in a healthy way so that you can move through those really, really hard times confidently and find your balance and still find your joy through the sadness of life. Because oftentimes things like death, um, and just deep traumas, like horrible things, right? Like sexual assault, like a lot of women experience sexual assault, right? In various different forms throughout their life. What is the statistic? 1 in 4, 1 in 3? Like it's a
It's
lot.
very high.
It's very high. And so a lot of women are dealing with low self-esteem because of things like that. And so then comes the big task of identifying first where that trauma or that grief is coming from, and then actively choosing to heal. So choosing healing um, is a process. And it's also not going to take place in a single class, not a single yoga class, not a single cup of tea, not a single herbal regimen, not a single therapy session. This is a lifelong journey of you getting to know yourself and what you need in order to thrive throughout all the experiences in life, including death, including trauma. And so that takes a really deep dive into getting to know who you are. What do you like? Do you like to dance? Do you like to grow plants? Do you like to cook? Do you like to kayak? Do you like to go hiking? Do you like to paint? What do you like to do? First and foremost, like you have to know yourself in order to love yourself. Like if you're lost into sauce, I'm going to say stop scrolling, stop watching TV, and get out of the echo chamber of negativity. Get
Yeah.
to know you. Go take a silent walk down the street, go take a silent walk in your local park. Go sit with your thoughts. Go sit with yourself. Journal about it. Ask yourself intently, who am I and what do I like to do? And what fuels my heart? What fuels my soul? What is my purpose? Because when you know your purpose and you know what you love in life, then you know what you love about yourself, you know, because you just follow that frequency of love. But there's many, many layers to that. And it's unique for each woman. It's unique for each person. Self-love is a journey, and it involves healing and really getting to know what you're actually here for. Because if you don't know what you're here for, then you're just living day to day and you don't have a purpose, you're not working towards anything, then it's easy to get lost and depressed. So figure out what that is in your life and start walking towards it. Nobody said you had to run towards anything. So this isn't a race either. This isn't like, oh my God, all the things that I can do to become a superhuman at 30. No. Stuff just begins at 30. Little did I know. And, it's funny. We think we're so wise, and then each new decade like introduces a whole new set of spectrum of human experience where you're just like, oh my God, you know.
It's so fun getting older. Like, I love getting older.
Yeah, it's like you get better and better with each year. It's
Yeah.
because you know who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't become scary when you know who you are. Like there's so many women in my life, in my in my family, um, not necessarily like chosen sisterhoods or what have you, but where women are genuinely afraid of getting older, and they talk down on themselves, they talk down on their bodies, they just, it's just sad, you know. But it all stems from them not giving themselves what they need and not having anything exciting that they're working towards. No goals, no nothing. It's just surviving, right? So getting out of that survival state of mind, which is very possible with much more than money. So a lot of
Yeah.
people think that it's a privilege to be outside of survival mode. It is, and also it's a mindset first. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all the things you just listed, I was just thinking that I think a lot of times people will make that excuse of, I can't heal because I can't afford therapy or I can't afford all this stuff. And it is like there's so many things you can do that are free. And what really jumped out to me that you said that I think is so important for this moment in time is like, put your fucking phone down, get off of
Mm-hmm.
social media. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're in the older generation, turn off the TV, turn the news off.
Yeah, I turned the news off for real.
Like that's just straight mind control. And if you
Mm-hmm.
can put that, even if you can just like put it, give yourself 2 minutes and be like 2 minutes where you're usually just doom scrolling and say, I'm going to doom scroll for 2 minutes less and just sit with myself. Or like you said, go outside and go on a walk. Go on a walk and leave your phone at home. And
Yeah, right.
it's little stuff like that. Like it doesn't have to be this big thing. You don't need to buy someone's program or sign up for some like, you know, year long transformation program. Like make your own transformation program and let it be easy, let it be simple.
Mm, right. Like actually, but that's the kicker, Sid. Like we've lost that sense of simplicity as a whole. Where in some people it was never lost, right? But like what I'm finding that our generation is lacking so much is actually really basic human skills.
Yeah.
Um, like they're great at sitting in front of a computer and things like that. But when it comes to taking care of themselves, they've lost it. Like they don't know how to cook, they don't know how to clean, they don't know how to do these really, really basic things. Like mothers aren't they aren't like it's not kicking in. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're putting their kids in front of tablets. They're still feeding them the same foods that we grew up on the standard American diet, like craft grilled cheese sandwiches and wondering and like Skittles and like wondering why kids are like getting diagnosed with ADHD, this, that, and the other. It's like, no, this is sugar addiction, my guy. Like these are like a multitude of addictions that your child's already experiencing because they're what you're experiencing as well. Because of the basic fact that you don't know how to cook, you don't know how to take care of yourself, and you're highly medicated. Like so many of the people in our generation are like that describes them. They're like highly medicated, don't know how to take care of themselves, and working these stressful jobs, right? So it's kind of insane. The solution is so simple and yet so complex to now the average American person.
Yeah.
We've got our work cut out for us, to say the
Yeah,
least.
definitely. So last year was a big year of integration for me and letting all the things that I've learned over the past maybe, I mean, all my life and all my lives, but really the last 4 years of taking trainings and everything. And I'm really still working on this, finding my languaging around how to speak with people about these things in a way that it can be received, because a lot of the things we
Mm-hmm.
talk about are so tender and people are so like defensive
Yeah.
immediately how you say it. And it's like we're coming from this place of love. Like
Mm-hmm.
the message that we have to spread, the songs that we have to sing are rooted in love, and it's because we care about ourselves and our families and our lineage and humanity. and our ancestors and like the future of everything, the future, even having a future.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I love that you are so bold in the way you speak and you really have that essence of like not giving a fuck. And yeah, I guess I'm just saying that I'm really working on finding my voice. So that's, I mean, that's a little bit about what this project here is, starting the podcast and just having these conversations
Mm-hmm.
and recording them and sharing that with the world in that way, is so that we can just,
Mm-hmm.
show up in this kind of casual way of just like we're two women getting together chatting, like we could be having this conversation in the park right now, but we're going to
Mm-hmm.
post it on the internet and share that with the world and like let the rest of the people in on the conversation, which I think is important.
Mm. It is important. Yeah, these conversations are very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing, another thread that was kind of been pulling to me as you've been speaking is family and family dynamics. And I know that that
Mm.
is really centered in the work that you're doing. And like you said, when
Mm-hmm.
as you were a little girl and you're looking around at your family who is like getting sick and dying all around you, and that is what really drove your curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder like what your experience has been with that and bringing that to like bringing your knowledge and all these things that you've gathered over time as tools so that you can heal your family.
Mm-hmm.
And what has your real life experience been with that? And I ask that because I know from my own experience that for me, it's actually the hardest for me to bring these tools to my family. And
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like they have a big defense up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you're offending people by wanting to help them, like I've
Mm-hmm.
really been sitting with the question of like, especially with this last season of holidays, my big question was what's the line between how can I balance accepting my family for who they are and loving them for
Mm-hmm.
or exactly who they are, and not being an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said,
Yeah.
it matters, the people that you surround yourself with is so important. And yeah, I think you get where I'm going with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is complex. Because yeah, they're definitely the ones that resisted the most. I think because they, first of all, like people resist change, right? So, not, it was very, I was shocked when I first became a health coach and I started to see this very much so like the food addictions run in just as deep as alcohol or drug addiction, because it is drug addiction, because most people's food are is full of toxic drugs that are keeping them continuing to go back to these things called foods that are not food. So it kind of shocked me when I realized that less than 7% of people or so are going to hear a solution and then apply it immediately. My brain falls in that 7% of human beings, within that small percent of humans that like hear of a solution, see the solution, apply the solution instantly. Um, and I thought that everybody was like that. I was like, oh, this makes sense. You see a solution, you apply it. If there's something that is going to knowingly cause me cancer, I'm going to avoid it if I can, right? No. Ah, no. Addiction is real. So, like I'm telling you right now, addiction is real. Sugar addiction is real. Salt addiction, like all the addictions of the chemicals that are in foods are have a stronghold, because that's the type of food that I grew up with, and that was the type of food that was like in my home and throughout my family. That's the type of food that's still there with them, and that they're still addicted to heavily. Um, those are the habits that still hold them and keep the diseases churning. Um, at this point, like I've been sounding the alarm for my family since I was young. So they are very much so used to me uh, being the health nut. Um, in seventh grade, I went to my dad and I told him I wanted to be a vegan, and he laughed at me. And that's kind of been the rhetoric. Like, forever, I was made fun of. Like, the way that I ate was made fun of. They called it bird seed. They were like, they would just laugh at it, make fun of it, this, that, and the other. I remember being really fiery and passionate about my approach around the age of like 19, 20, 21. And I would get so like intently passionate. Like I remember one time my uncle, he was cooking a fried bologna sandwich with some crinkle Lay's chips, and I was deep in my like health coaching journey, and I was like, I took the bologna sandwich, I threw it in the trash, and I took the bag of chips, I crunched them up, and I opened them up and I poured them in the trash so he couldn't eat them later. And I was like, B, I love you, and I'm tired of this. You don't want diabetes no more, do you? You don't want heart disease anymore, do you? I love you, man, and I ain't gonna have you die tomorrow. So you can't eat this shit no more. And so that was my approach initially, was like, I can't believe you guys are willingly killing yourselves. And then it turned into, oh, like you're judging us and we don't like it. It turned into that defense mechanism. That wasn't even their logical brain, it was their gut brain. So your gut, like, it literally turns into the blob monster. Okay. So like the fat in your body has cravings. Like there are living blobs in the body that tell you to go for that Mickey D's. Okay. Like it's crazy. And it'll just like come up out the gut and get in your ear and be like, ooh, I want that 10 piece. And it will keep doing that every day. Like, and it'll be a different craving every day, but that same voice from the gut will rise up like a demon out of hell, and it'll be like, hey, give me that, but that same little gut entity will come up and lash at the person that's trying to help you make a healthy decision. so so that's what was happening all around me. I got it from every angle. My daddy would yell at me if I said no McDonald's, Dad. He would yell at me. He'd be like, I want McDonald's now. And I'd be like, but Dad, you got heart disease. He'd be like, I don't want your cooking. I mean, has been a battle, okay? A battle between me and my veggies and like my fam and their fast food. Like we go at it like sword to sword. But I never back down. And so now 15 years later, I am healthy, I'm active, I'm spiritually in tune. They're like, what is she on? I want some of that. So now I just lead by example. I don't teach nobody. No, no, no. I'm gonna get my cookbook out, this, that, the other. I don't do one-on-one coaching. I don't, unless my people are coming to me and they're being like, hey, I'm ready for this change, I need help, then I offer it. I don't even charge for it. I'm just like, it's just a way of life. Like it's just a part of it. And so now, and what I found is the best approach is leading by example, because they're watching us. And then also too, I talk about it with my team. It's just upgrading. It's just upgrading your habits. Like that's the terms that we're using now when we're like coming in. We're not telling you to change anything. We're just saying, we're just giving you upgrade options. Right? We're just giving you upgrade options. It doesn't matter what you're dealing with. Just know that it gets better. And here are the ways that you can feel better. Here are the ways that, you can help heal your gut if you want to do that. I'm not forcing it on nobody. I've detached myself from the outcome of my family, from their health outcomes, and I love them so very much, but I can no longer attach myself to what they do with the information that I give them, because they're free. They're free to do with the information what they please. So time has shown me who does what with what, and that's it. I can't get sad about it. I can't get mad about it. I just meet them where they're at now. So, and then, when we go to restaurants together, they see what I order. They see that I don't drink. They see all these things. And then, every once in a while I'll get a phone call. I'll get questions. Now, it's like it's great. The elders in my family come to me and they're like, "What kind of tea can I drink for this?" So it's like a very slow and gradual process for some. And for others, it's like right away. They're like, "Okay, I'm ready." And they make the change overnight. Next thing you know, you got chef chefs everywhere. Everybody cooking and chopping, and it's a beautiful scene. So slow and steady, I suppose. But and also through me, like when I have kids, then it's gonna be. You see what I'm saying? So like it carries on in a way
Yeah.
to where, as my family grows, as my definition of family grows, as I get a husband and have kids and things like that, then it's just second nature. Then it's just who we are from the beginning. And that's how quickly you can phase out a toxic habit. That's how quickly you can introduce one as well. So it's epigenetics. It's literally the power of shaping your genes and your genetic outcome by the choices that you make every day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And that does encompass you leading by example. Like that is what you do.
That's what I do. That's it.
Brilliant.
That's
Simple.
it. That's it. That's it. That's it. And I found that people, you know, it's interesting, especially starting off in the yoga sphere. We've seen so many people sexualize these practices just to market and try to get attention for their business. And it's hard as women, right? Because we're faced with that in every field. And I'm having to embrace my beauty and my femininity in a way that is still teachable to children, because that's so important for me. It's like
Mm.
I want the little girls to come to our page or these conversations and find a healthy way forward that doesn't continue to instill their need to sell their bodies for attention or money, right? So it's also been a process because this is the slower growth. Like you and I could easily get online and post ourselves in yoga poses and bikinis all day long and have 100,000 followers by the end of the spring. You know, that's the easy way forward. But what I appreciate about myself and with you and with the people that I'm working with is that we're moving forward in a state of integrity. We're not racing. This is a lifelong commitment. These are lifelong connections. And I want to stay in right alignment with elders, with God, with the kids. Like, I want everybody to be able to learn from me. So, no, I'm not going to be out here with my nipples out. And, like, you know, kudos to all my people that love to express their bodies and art in that way. And also, I'm just not going to do it because I think that that's sacred. Like, I think that when we talk about even sacred reclamation of our bodies and things like that, like, we've grown up in a really interesting era where it's like normal to share so much online, so much to people we don't even know. Like, what happened to actually keeping things sacred? Like, keeping things special, keeping parts of yourself special for the one that you love. Like, I know that I'm sexy. I don't need the world to tell me that I'm sexy. You know that you're sexy. You don't need the world to be like, that ass, baby. Oh my God. Like, and I thank God that you don't need that. I thank God that I don't need that to feel good about myself. It's actually the opposite. It freaks me out. It scares me. It scares me. The thought of men that I don't know jacking off to my image online scares me. I'm like, I don't need that energy. I'm good.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna catch me in my grandma's skirt. Yes, like grandma's skirt. And I'll give you a little belly every now and then, but give you a
Yeah.
little goddess every now and again, but I don't need to get fully all out there to sell this work. This is not, yeah.
And I love that thread that you wove in about our daughters and young women coming to us and looking to us, because I did go through a phase, probably from when I started puberty, and I would say probably 7th grade to, I mean, so much really happened during that time of like 14 to 24, where I was on birth control. I never even experienced what my cycles were really like because I got put on
Hmm.
birth control and I
Wow.
never questioned it. It took me 10 years to question it.
Wow.
And so that really took me away from my body when I was already in a pattern of dissociation. And so the only thing I saw my body as was a way to get attention, like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm cute, I'm skinny, I have this beautiful brown skin, people like looking at me, like, let me use that. And I mean, I have such a, I feel so tender towards that version of me, that girl, that young woman
Hmm.
who really saw the world that way and was
Hmm.
so limited by that, and have done a lot of work on forgiving myself for that. I even like woke up maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I just woke up one morning and I was just like, the first thing I thought was, I forgive you. A lot
Hmm.
some like, I feel like up until recently a lot of my journey has been on forgiving other people. So it was like forgiving these boys who, you know, took things from me, or the negative experiences that I had with them. And then just realizing, like, yeah, that's great to forgive them and to forgive the other people. But I think the real work and that's how you call your power back, is like forgiving yourself. I forgive
Hmm.
me, and I love myself. I love who I was then. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, and I think that language even more so, Sid, like leaning into "I love you" versus "I forgive you," because "I forgive you" is saying to ourselves that we've done something wrong, that
Yeah.
we did something wrong, but we didn't do anything wrong. That little girl who was like seeking attention was doing so from a place of a lack of love that she needed at that time. So it's like really just sending her love, sending her acknowledgement, sending her a deep knowing. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're right. There is that kind of that phase of, I'm sorry, I forgive you, and then allowing that to evolve into, I love you,
Hmm.
and I am grateful for you, and you're perfect exactly the way you were. And to, wind it back to where we were earlier, like, you're worthy.
Hmm.
No matter what you do, no matter what happens to you, you're worthy.
Hmm.
Like, you don't have
You
to
are
do
so.
anything to be worthy. I think we have a little group message with my siblings, and my sister kind of sent something in the message, and we grew up in a really sports oriented family, and she was asking my brother, like, since you don't do sports anymore, how do you feel less connected to your worth without those sports, without that way of getting like external validation? And we had just like a really simple short text conversation, but it was just like, we're all inherently worthy. It doesn't matter what we do or don't do or how we perform, or it just is, because we're here and we're born, and we know that because we're here, we're alive.
Yeah, and one thing leads to another, and you never know like how that will evolve either, right? Like same thing, I look at the same thing with relationships. Like ending a relationship is not bad or good. It's just something that happens. And it's not an ending of something, it's a continuum of energy. Everything that we experience is just a continuum. So there there is really no right or wrong turn that we make, because I believe that our destiny is like already outlined for us based off of what I personally experience and that I deem these future memories. It's almost as if time itself is not linear. Like we can experience multiple versions of ourselves at any given moment in time. And we feel like I've felt the essence so closely of my future kids, like their energies just like have come to me in ways and I can't really explain it. But like deja vu even or things like that where I'm like, wow, like I've been here before. Like I've been working towards this moment this whole time. And every painful experience I've had, every low moment I've went through has led me to this very high moment, this very amazing moment, this absolute miracle. And I can't unsee that. Like it all leads to something.
Mm-hmm.
Even the hardest times of our lives lead to something. Like I didn't grow up in a house that was very healthy. And that was necessary for me to be so curious and inspired and driven by health to become the leader that I am today. All of that was necessary. Everything. So it's all about perspective and how we respond to life at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to, if you're open to talking about, I know we share, similar experience of being young and losing a parent. And like
Mm-hmm.
you were just saying, some of the hardest things we go through turn out to be so wonderful. And that has really been my experience of losing my mom and unexpectedly and just everything what came after that as a ripple effect. That, yeah, that was one of the worst things that ever happened to me, and also it's one of the best things that ever happened for me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I just want to open up the conversation because with the death of a parent, that is something that most people are going to experience. And also, I think experiencing it at a young age is unique. And I think that a lot of people out there who maybe they do have their parents still are going to go through that one day. So I feel like it would just be a fruitful conversation to talk about what that experience was like and how how that can kind of be. I forget what you said about Kaya, but you said in the moment that she passed, like there was so much energy transferred to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes our society sees death as like a taking away, losing
Mm-hmm.
something.
Right. Versus a
When,
transference.
yeah, I think that perspective shift, like you were just saying, of an energy transfer is so beautiful. And it's even in the conversation of, a lot of people talk about ancestral trauma or generational trauma and focus so much energy on that instead of like the healing and the gifts. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so just opening up that conversation.
Yeah, it's been really powerful, honestly. Like, and just from the moment that he's died, I've felt my father um, even closer, really, in moments as a spirit. Um, his the the closure for him is not completed yet. It was really interesting. So, like when Kaya died, I got her ashes, and then a year later, which was last summer, I went back to the very first hike that we ever took together. And it was a 21, 22-mile round trip in the Colorado mountains. And it was profound because that was my closure. Like I took her ashes, I spread it on the trail, I buried the little box in like the most beautiful heaven-like valley I've ever seen that I can return to and walk upon and remember. And when my father passed away, his wife reacted unusually. Um, this is the first time that I'm like really sharing this story, and I know that it's needed to be shared, and trying to find a way to do it where it makes sense, right? While not being attached to what anybody thinks of it. Um, but typically, when someone dies, the family comes together and moments are shared. You know, you talk about your feelings, you talk about your memories, you present your memories together, and a will is presented. And then, you know, especially if you're an heir or close to that person, you become aware of everything that they left behind. And then as a family, you decide what to do with their things and with what remains and with loose ends untied. And, you know, you work together as a family to come to that closure moment. And that didn't happen with me and my brother. Instead, his wife turned very angry and um, very, she like asserted herself over his things and his ashes and his will and all of the paperwork and all of the things that me and my brother had the right to. And she's kept it from us ever since. So 1 year later, and I still don't have my father's ashes. We still have not spread them, which is a very important spiritual piece for me. Like to, you know, to free that spirit. She moved on to a new relationship like a couple months after he died. So literally kind of left the house empty and like left his essence just sitting there. Um, we haven't, she's just decided to stop talking to me for no reason. She didn't understand what I was asking for, which was full transparency over the situation. I haven't seen a will. Supposedly, she said there wasn't one. It's been very mysterious and something that has broken my heart into a million pieces while also showing me something so much deeper about the process of death. And it also made me realize like, I definitely want to be, you know, take courses on you know, like death doulaship and things like that, even though I'm naturally one, I want to know the legal things that a family needs to know and all the legal stuff that's very important to handle before someone dies or as someone's dying, as a family, transparently together. I can't stress it enough
Yeah.
that to relieve the burden of your death off of your loved ones, please plan for it. Please, please, please plan for it. My dad did not. I asked him, and he was like, "No, that's for my wife to handle. She'll handle everything." I'm like, "That's a bad idea. She's not our mother. She doesn't care about us in that way. And we need full transparency as a family." And that just never happened, right? So I think there was like this initial anger and confusion. Like, wait a second, like, I'm kind, I'm so nice, like, I'm just asking about things that are normal and customary when people die. Why is this happening? And what's going on? Um, and to be dealing with a generation that was so selfish in a sense that they just didn't set their families up for success, right? Like they just avoided death so much. They're so scared of death that they just completely turned a blind eye to it, and didn't prepare for it, right? And so here I'm having this woman who doesn't believe in God, who doesn't have any sort of practice in her life, who doesn't have any positive coping mechanisms, and then dealing with somebody who's just not resourced or emotionally intelligent, who, despite the very obvious signs of their husband dying, was in disbelief when it happened. Um, and so dealing with that has been complete hell. And at the same time, it's shown me the bigger side of the transference of energy, I am my father's daughter. Like, I, so much of what I'm doing with my life and so many of the gifts that I have come from his lineage and come from who he always wanted to be. I'm like continuing life in the way that my dad always dreamed of but never did. I, I have this sense of humor. I have his swagger, like all these special, most beautiful things about my father. I have. It's in me. I inherited all of that for free. Thank you very much, as he would like to say. And so, there's that. And so then there's the process of forgiveness that you have to go through. And so then it's been this beautiful and powerful, very deeply spiritual experience of like having dreams where he's with me presently as a spirit and talking through these things and forgiving him for things and healing in the dream realm. It's been visions of him and my grandmother in real time coming down in moments, saying like giving their affirmation of like, yes, this is, and in particular what I'm talking about is when my current boyfriend and I first started dating, we went to this concert, and it was a gospel concert. And I looked to my right, and my dad and my grandma were sitting there. This is like gospel music we all like grew up with. So they were sitting there in real time form, not as a memory, like as spirits there by my side. They gave confirmation that this man is somebody that they would love for me to be with while enjoying the concert with me. Like when the lights came on, like I was just like my eyes were just streaming in these tears that like only happen when you experience that level of human emotion. It's not a space of sadness. It's just such strong energy that starts to move through your body that comes through spontaneous tears. Like that's what these levels of experiences will happen, like at least for me. So as the year has happened, I've gotten so deep into my creativity, so deep into who I am, and like so deeply emotive. There'll be moments where I'll be writing a song, perhaps about my father or just about the process of losing him or death, and I'll just start crying, but it's not even me being like, oh, I need to cry right now. It's just moved to that state of such depth that you just cry. And it didn't happen to me until Kaya died, really. Like once Kaya died, these moments started spurring up. It's almost like grief coming through in spurts, in the way that it comes up, like when you miss them so much, or a moment reminds them of you, or a song reminds you of them, and then you see the way that they guide you. Like they'll guide you in such special ways. Like my dad loves to speak to me through music. And so, I'll be in a place and then a song that he loves will pop up and I'll feel his spirit close. Also, through my current partner, so much of him is in the likeness of my father, but also in me and in the people that I love. Like there's so many reflections of like him too in a really unique way. And so it's almost like my dad is sending me people and gifts and like little acknowledgments of his love along the way, along the path. And I tune into that daily, really, like just, being reminded of him um, wherever I go. And I think the hardest part, Sid, which I know you understand, is this concept of having a whole family that he'll never meet. Like, like you'll never be able to hold my baby. Like he'll never be able to walk me down the aisle. Like these really big moments that will take place in my life that I don't get to share with him. But just have to trust that he'll experience in his own way as a spirit. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's no way that you can't think about that kind of stuff when someone that important to you dies. And also, I just try to take it like one experience, or really, really be in presence helps me, I guess, I don't know. I don't want to say cope with my grief because it's not really something to cope with. It's just part of this human
Dance with it.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
But because it can get really sad if you go down that road of all the things that they're not going to be there for and all the conversations you didn't get to have. And it does go back to that perspective shift and seeing all the conversations you do get to have and how you get to have those conversations in different ways. And
Mm-hmm.
if you open yourself up to it, there's still a lot available.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's important for me to it feels really true to me also that I do deeply miss my mom in her physical form, you know? Like I wish she was here. I I wish I could. There's so like just the path that her death put me on
Mm.
and all the things that I've learned. Like I'm like, damn, I wish we could like sit down at the table over dinner and talk about this stuff because I'm so curious of what she would have had to say in her human form, you know? Like I know
Mm-hmm.
she's all enlightened and free and just this spirit now and in her higher consciousness, but it's like what would Heather would have said cuz Heather might have cussed me out.
Right. That's funny.
I was just like missing the
Ah.
humanness of it, but also there is a lot of beauty in the new bond and connection that's formed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good reminder. Death is such a good reminder when someone that you love dies that we're alive, and so is grief. Like I just wrote a poem
Mm.
the other day about like don't pity me when I'm sad or
Mm.
don't pity me if I express my sadness or my anger. Like rejoice with me because this means that I'm alive. I'm experiencing
Mm.
life fully.
Mm-hmm.
Our tendency is to be like, "Oh, don't cry," like, or you share something and people are like, "I'm here if you need to talk," or "Are you okay?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
or they back off. They don't want to be around the emotion, and it's like this is life. This is the juice and the essence. Like this is what it is to be alive is to feel deep sadness and for me like journeying into darkness and really finding a lot of beauty down there in those deeper depths of emotion that are scary but hold so much medicine and coming back up and expressing that in joy and yeah I don't value like any emotion over another one. I don't think that joy is better than sadness or that anger is a bad emotion or a
Mm-hmm.
secondary emotion. And it is a gift that my mom gave me when she took her life that was like a reminder for me to fucking live mine.
Mm. Yeah. That's so real. That is so real. All of it is energy in motion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for you, how have you processed with your mom's death, with it being a choice that she ultimately made? Like for myself, um, it's interesting because for my father specifically, his death was a culmination of choices that he made that ultimately led to his death at his age. Um, but the choices that he made led to his body getting so sick and so tired, but he just held on in that state of sickness for a long time. So it's in a way he was actively choosing death each time he picked up the bottle, each time that he ate foods that were clogging his heart, right? Like, um, but in your case, it was very sudden. So, like, how have you processed that and in your body and in your heart and in your mind?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. My mother passed away a little over 6 years ago now. And I would say it's actually similar to what you said about your dad. It was like your dad was making these choices, and I didn't see that my mom was making those choices. I wasn't aware of it. I was very naive
Mm.
to what
What she
her
was going through, like her
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah. And she did hide it really well. She didn't want to be seen in that way. She didn't allow very many people to see her in that way. Um And at first, I had a lot of anger. And I just felt like, what the fuck? Like, I really couldn't understand. I think I was lacking compassion because I was so in the real life experience of that.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, why didn't you just, like, you could have just, the power of choice is so crazy. If she could have just chose to pick up the phone
Mm.
in that moment instead of choosing making the choice that she made, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Because so many, even though she had this story in her head of
Mm-hmm.
that no one loved her and nobody wanted her,
Mm-hmm.
like if she would have just picked up the phone and called anyone, so many people loved her.
Right.
So many people wanted her. So many people
Mm-hmm.
yearn for her still.
Mm-hmm.
And probably some of the people who do the most are probably the people that she thought the least, like loved her the least.
Right.
And so that was my first experience, and now that it's been 6 years, it's always unfolding and unraveling and revealing more. Last year at the end of the year, my a woman, her name is Julie, she was like basically like my second mom, I would say. We grew up with her family. They lived 3 houses down the street. Her and my mom were best friends.
Hmm.
She died. She was
Oh.
fighting cancer for she got diagnosed when we were in middle school and kind of went in and out of remission. And so that was a really interesting, like, paradox of, and I learned through this experience that at first to me it felt like my mom is dying all over again. And then I learned through that experience that, like, no, that's not what this is. This was my mother. Like, the difference between your mother and like someone you see as your mom is very different.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it was like, on one hand you have this I'll use the word mom just to kind of keep it on the same scale. Like, you have this mom who chose to take her life. That was an active choice that she made in a moment or a series of moments. And then you have this other mom, these two women here, and the other one is like desperately fighting for her life till the last
Oh.
moment.
Yeah.
And that has been, I mean, I'm still sitting with it and still sitting with the message and the learning that's here with that. But that has been really interesting, and I've just found a lot more compassion for, like, all of these women who are, because it is also true that my mom was fighting for her life. She battled depression and mental health issues for most of her life. I remember my dad telling me, like, when she always struggled with that when they were younger. He was like, I really thought that she would have, if that was going to happen, that would have happened, 25, 30 years ago. I never
Mm.
expected that to happen now. So it was like she was always battling her demons and she kept fighting. She kept choosing life until she didn't.
Mm.
And so just to have compassion for that and to see that too, mental health, there are illnesses there, and we see them so differently than we would see something like cancer.
Mm.
And I'm actually just like really processing this in real time right now speaking with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all sickness, it's all disease. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the mental health stuff just comes with a lot more, which makes sense that it would have like mental judgments and perceptions. And stigmas around it, and we treat it in such a different way as we would cancer.
Hmm. But the disease, like you said, it's all disease. It's all stemming from that state of, unhappiness, stress, burnout, a lack of understanding of your own mind, of your own body, um, creating an environment that's not conducive for your body to respond in a healthy pattern.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to set yourself up for that. Like, you really, really do. And it takes work. It takes work. And we've been removed. Everybody who lives here has been assimilated. They've been completely removed from their culture, from their why, from their sense of purpose, from everything. No matter what race that you are. You came here, you've been assimilated. You've been removed of everything that you've ever known. It's no wonder that we're seeing so much cancer of the mind, body, and spirit today. This is a byproduct of assimilation. No matter if you're white, no matter if you're black, no matter if you're somewhere in between, native, indigenous, Mexican, Norwegian. It doesn't matter. If you're here on this soil, you've been ripped from something that has, like I hear this story my godmother shares of her mom, and they grew up in the same church, as my grandmother, um, in a very assimilated church. And she remembers going to one of her son's friends' weddings, and it was a Nigerian wedding. And she just cried because she saw everything that'd been taken from her: the ritual, the clothes, the joy, the abundance, the community. The community. So when you're taken from your community and just expected to fall in line with how one demographic of people says that we should all live, it's no wonder that it's so rampant. These diseases are rampant across the globe now because more countries are starting to model off of the Western way of life. And with that comes more disease. And so that's why I ultimately come back to these ancestral methods of being and healing for true healing, because I do believe that I don't I don't think we're depressed. I think we're removed from what makes us feel alive.
Yeah.
We're removed of our culture. We're removed of the things that brought us joy. We've been removed from our communities. The sadness is not an internal process, it's a byproduct of assimilation of the modern society. Everybody's dealing with it, whether they say they are or they aren't, whether they're good at hiding it or not. Everybody is dealing with it because they've lost their family recipes, they've lost their family dances, they've lost their birth rituals and their death rituals, and they're wandering around lost, wondering why they feel this way, getting prescribed these pills as a solution. Girl, listen. No, you don't need an antidepressant. You need to clean your home. You need to find out who you are, research your lineage, and go to that land. Lay on that land. Sit by the waterfall. Make food with the ones that you love. Like, I'm not bashing science or anything like that, but I am a huge proponent of there being a natural solution for everything. Because that's all these pills derive from anyways.
Mm-hmm.
They derive from a plant. So instead of giving you all the byproducts and all the side effects of this pill, I want to help you assess your life and see where we can insert joy and well-being and the herbs derivative of this antidepressant. And that's what I want to serve individuals. you know I want them to want that, and again, unattached to those that don't. But for those that do, I want to be an open line for them.
Yeah. The the beautiful thing is that although we've lost all of these things and it is a tragedy, it's like we can reclaim them.
Yeah.
And it's just like we were saying, it's one choice away. Everything is just one choice away.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, some things are many choices away, but one choice at a time is going to get you
Yeah.
closer.
Yeah. One choice at a time. That's all it takes.
And
That's a
it is a lifelong journey. I think something that our generation and the generations younger than us who grew up in this, I mean, we're blessed to be on that, on that edge where we weren't born into this generation of technology and internet and things coming at an instant.
so fast. Yeah.
But it's like that's just not really the speed of nature, and it can be like there are moments when everything comes at once, a hurricane sweeps in and everything's different, a fire sweeps in and burns everything to the ground and everything's different. But also nature is slow and seasonal and there's a rhythm, and I think that's something important to remember when it comes to like, quote unquote our healing journeys. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a journey, and it's not something to cross off your to-do list, and you don't have to stress about getting it all done so that you don't screw up your kids. Your kids are going to be screwed up in their own perfect way.
Yeah. And it's energy too. It's like, so many people address healing as that to-do list, right? They're like, okay, I have my therapy session at 1, and then I have yoga at 6, and then I have an ounce of chicken and 4 ounces of broccoli, and then I am going to do my meditation and da 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 da, like they literally list it all out and it becomes this itemized list of things to do, but you can do all those things and stay in a traumatic state if you're unaware of
Mm,
energy. And also, you can have all that going on, but still be in an abusive relationship or still have toxic people around you, and no amount of green juice is going to save you. Like, it's just not so much. It's like people can get down the itemized things, but then the deep spiritual stuff is really messy and it's spontaneous. And so, like, you just have to be ready, for all that.
yeah. And I think that the biggest thing is like honesty. Be honest with yourself.
Hmm.
Cuz if you're not honest with yourself, like you have no foundation, you have no roots
Hmm.
to build from.
I think that's the toughest part, which is why, like, first step to anything is acknowledging that there needs to be a change.
Yeah.
Because ignorance is bliss. So a lot of folks like to stay in that space of pretending to not know because it's easier there. It's fuzzier there. You get to watch all the Netflix in the world there.
I
It's
dream
like,
about I joke so much like, oh, I wish I was one of those ignorance is bliss people.
I
Like,
know,
why couldn't
right?
I be born ignorant?
I think that sometimes we're like, why couldn't I be born a villain? Like, I could just go rob a bank and then all my problems would be solved. But, like, we're doing it the good way.
Yeah.
We're doing it the good way. We're doing it the good way, folks. All right. All right. The good ways, the good way forward.
Yeah.
We like karma. Karma's good.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Slow and
That's
steady.
like, that's why I've come to such a place, Sid, of like anybody who's ever done me wrong, like I just send them compassion at this point. I'm like, you know what? There's something in you that felt so low to do another person harm, and that is sad. That's actually like pathetic. So I'm going to send you love no matter how hard you think you're stinging me or bringing me down or knocking me down. Like, I'm going to just continue to send you love and compassion because send love to your enemies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's that.
Shane's really good at that. Like we had a conversation the other day and I was saying like I don't want this person like coming over here because she's really rude to you, and Shane's so sweet and loving and just like lives in his own universe. I'm like, I don't think you notice all the digs that get thrown your way when she's around. And Shane's like, oh, I notice. He's like, I just don't care. He's like, it's not
Right.
sh- she's not doing that to me, she's doing that to herself.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I it takes work, a lot of work for for me to get there, you know. But it's true.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
true.
Because that behavior, nobody likes that behavior. So, like, that's going to continue to burn them anyways. Like, people can act like that, and that's on them. It's literally just going to continue to backfire on them over and over again. So,
Yeah, and the quote that kept coming up for me was like, people will always remember how you made them feel, which is just so true. Like there's people like you walk away from a conversation with you and you feel so good and alive and inspired, and then there's, you know, other people in the world who are just like suck the life out of you and you feel tired and angry and
mm,
grumpy, and it's just like be around the people that light you up and inspire you, and remember how people make you feel.
yeah, and stay connected. Like, I will say, like, that's a perk of technology in our day and age where, you know, I have always been an expansive person. So, my community is global. Like, I am grateful for that. And it wouldn't be possible without, the technology of today. So, because
Mm-hmm.
of what we have access to now, I won't take it for granted and I'm going to utilize it to get me moving in the way that God needs me to be moving in this life. And so grateful to be able to work on teams and work on projects with people from all over the country, from a computer. Like, it's crazy. It's a beautiful time. It's a
Yeah.
unique time. Who knows if we'll always have this level of freedom. So, like, take advantage of it now.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of come to the end of our time, is there any other places you want to go? Anything you want to say that hasn't been said?
Hmm. I think, like, just to continue on this topic of, like, what are we reclaiming? Um, what are we reclaiming in this life? And I think about all the practices that assimilation has tried to take from us, and also, like, being a mixed identity child and, like, coming from parents that were completely removed from their sense of culture. Remembering our sacred practices in this life has been the best healing that I could possibly ask for. And that has looked like returning to herbalism, returning to braiding my hair and the hair of those that I love, returning to planting seeds and praying and singing in nature and exploring nature, even like coming back to, like, returning to the forest as a deep act of sacred reclamation. um, returning to our foodways to heal disease, um, traditional foodways, like literal, like ground and garden to table, and um, all these things, and that we're choosing now. That I know myself, I didn't have parents show me any of this stuff. I'm the one that came in to show my parents this stuff again. And it can be kind of a lonely road. So, just for all those who are listening, and to you too, like, keep walking this path because it's leading us somewhere really, really special. And even if you are the first or only one in your family to think the way that you do or do the things that you do, know that the impact is generational, truly. And so I'm so proud of you, and love everything about this, and love the name, and love the concept, and love the action, really, of what we're here to do, which is sacredly reclaim all that thought was thought to be lost, but is actually being found as we dive deeper into discovering who we really are, despite our circumstances.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you totally just listed several practices and rituals, but is there one practice or ritual that you want to leave for folks that reminds you that life is sacred?
Definitely prayer. But I think exploring outside. So, like, I can't stress enough the power of walking on an unpaved trail and listening to the birds and the wind and the water without the city pollution sounds, without city pollution in general. So, if you have the ability, take yourself to a national park and go on that, multiple mile hike if you can, and see the wonders, the true wonders of this planet, um, and see God and like the immaculate canvas that is brand new every second of every day, that nature is, like true nature. Like, go so far, like you don't see a building. Like, I want you to take a walk, and yes, the path is going to be covered in dirt or moss or rocks or something other than concrete. Like, go to that mountaintop and sing your song, and do it with those that you love a lot. Do that a lot. Prioritize that. Prioritize that. Don't just make time for it. Like, prioritize that in your life. Think about what you can do, what you can shift and change to make that a normal day versus doing something that you hate just to survive a normal day, you know. Mm-hmm.
Mm,
That.
yeah, I'm receiving that.
Mm-hmm. Go sing on that mountain, honey. Oh, yeah. I was up on Mauna Kea on the Big Island the other day with my love, and it was kind of a touristy stop. It was crazy how we got there because it was as if the spirit of the island was coming through these indigenous peoples who had long lineages from there, and they were finding us even in the dark. Like, we got to Volcano National Park in the middle of the night, so you could see the volcano erupting. And at the farthest point, these two Hawaiian brothers like come up to us and just start talking to us and vibing with us, and it was such a powerful moment. And I brought up Mauna Kea, and I was like, well, I know that, there's just been a lot of protests and things going on out there. So I didn't know if it was respectful for us to go there at this time. And he was like, no, go, go. And it was like we were getting unneeded but desired permission from the land itself through these people that were like, just opening up, like, yes, go here, like, yes, go there. Like, it was like the island was really just showing out and bringing us to these really, like, just most potent points of truly sacred essence, right? So we're up at Mauna Kea stargazing, and I was like, oh, it's time to sing a song now. And so I started singing, and I made up this beautiful song, channeled this beautiful song about Mauna Kea and the energy of that mountain. And there was lots of tourists up there, and everybody got quiet. Nobody said a word after. It was just silent contemplation. And I think of that moment, and that's how I love to live my life. in that sort of essence and sharing in that with others, you know. Um, but yeah, sing at the top of the mountain and watch the blessings that come
Hmm.
when you do.
Is there a song? Is there a song sitting with you now that you would want to share?
Hmm. Sure, let's see what happens here. Hmm. For all the wolves that are listening, I want you to know you are worthy of all you need to succeed in your wildest dreams. So just keep going with what brings meaning. Follow your heart, forever fleeting. You are perfect as you are. Keep your head up, guided by stars. See, we are weaving old light beings wherever you are. Know that your life matters, no matter what. Do what you can. Don't give up. You are worthy of true love from below and above. You got this. Let it be known. Open your heart and let God flow. Open your heart and let God flow. It is there that eternal knowing will ever flow forevermore. And with this prayer, may we continue to do all all that we're meant to do. All that we're meant to.
Thank you, Alexis.
Thank
You,
you, honey, for following your dreams.
yeah, you are such a force of nature. You're such a beautiful woman and human being and daughter of this earth, sister, mother, friend.
I'm excited for the day we get to meet up again.
Oh, yeah.
And where are you now?
I'm in Florida right now. I'm in North Florida for the
Oh,
winter months.
what part?
Steenhatchee, Florida is the little town we're staying in. It's right below like the Bend. It's almost the Big Bend.
Okay, so towards the, like right below the panhandle type of thing.
Yeah, we're like an hour south of Tallahassee
That's a nice place
on
to
the
be.
West Coast. It is. I haven't spent much time here, being in the middle of Florida, the peninsula on the peninsula growing up. So it's cool to see this is kind of more old Florida vibes out in the
Mm-hmm.
nature where it's way less developed. And
Mm-hmm.
the house we're staying on is on a river. So
Oh, I love that though.
yeah.
I love how you always find these little backwoods houses. Baby loves nature.
That was like my unspecific prayer for so long was a house in nature. And that's just what I keep getting gifted. So
I love that so much.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. Do
Cool.
you want to share where people can connect with you, where they can find you?
Yeah, living by intention on Instagram, livingbyintention.com, still a vibe. So, a couple different ways to find me. Living by intention, you'll see, more of that story there. And then Alexis Ré is currently what my music platforms are on. So, Spotify, you'll find me there on that. And just through Sid, keep in touch. And if you guys want to know for real, just like ask her, like, hey, what can I find her? Sid will probably know.
Yeah. And then in person, you're either in LA or you might see out in LA or
Yeah.
Oakland.
Yeah. Hit me up if you're in LA or if you're in Oakland. Yep. As I'm both those places often. So that's my current stomping grounds, current highway I be traveling across.
Beautiful. I'll
Yeah.
put all of that info down in the show notes so people can click on it and find it and everything.
Look at you and your show notes. It's so proud. Oh my
The
God.
podcast actually like launches into the world tomorrow, the first episode. So I'm
Amazing.
super excited. All right, my
Yay.
love. Thank you so much for being
You're
here, for
welcome,
sharing
honey.
your magic and your medicine. It's so, so needed in the world.
Yes, as is yours. So we're on the right path.
Yeah. I love you.
Okay. Love you too. We'll talk soon, okay?
Yeah.